safe space is a place where Black men learn, heal, thrive, and value the freedom to be. A safe space allows Black men to color outside the lines without judgment, stigmas, biases, or boundaries. A safe space is a place where our Black voices impacts and counts. And here are your hosts, Ty Baker Jr. and Dax Addy.
All right, we back.
Welcome back. That's what we do.
I think this episode 8. I keep saying that every time we start because I'm like, man.
One of them got to be right.
Right.
Yeah,
But
that's it.
We just been naturally just rolling, and it just feels so good. So I'm like, I hope it's episode 8. And the listeners out there, y'all tell us wherever we at. But we got a good one today. We're going to be hitting on fatherhood.
Yep.
We got a great guest. Dax, go ahead and introduce him real quick, and I'm going to keep going.
Well, y'all, I'm going to say this, all right? This is a good friend of mine, big homie, kind of like a mentor, big brother. You know, he was somebody that encountered some of the steps of life before I got there. So, you know, it's always good to have somebody close in age that you can talk and rap to. This show, at the end of the day, it's about real people, issues we have, talking and kind of resolving it. So today, we felt like it was a good opportunity to bring in one of the homies, you know, somebody that I know from around the way a long time, you know,
And a big supporter of the show.
Yeah,
For sure.
big
Listen,
supporter.
This
right?
the first dude to like and share everything on our page.
Yeah. GetYourMindRight.com. Okay, that's it. So once again, everybody, you know, without further ado, my boy Big Will.
Man, humbled. Thanks for having me.
Most def.
Man, I'm excited.
Yeah.
This particular topic is just like one that's near and dear to my heart. So I appreciate y'all having me.
I remember whenever you, I think you were like the first person to comment on one of our Instagram posts, and you're like, "Yo, I want to be on the show," and I was like, "Yeah, we'll have you on."
Sure.
Not saying to anybody else out there being like, "You want to be on," but I was just like, because you know, I would post and I would get all these like messages right away, and I'm like, "Oh, those are bots." So I'm just like, oh, "There's another bot out there." Then I was like, "Oh, Dax follows him." But no, I'm blessed to have you on.
Thank you.
I watch your stuff on Instagram as well, and Dax and I have talked about you a lot, so I'm blessed to have you here.
I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to dive right into it because I'm going to tell you guys now this is going to be a part 2, and we got some special guests for part 2, so we're going to dive right into it.
Yeah, man.
You know, I told you, Dax, whenever I first came up with the idea for this was originally supposed to be with me and my dad.
Yeah.
And, you know, me and my dad had a great relationship growing up. But at the time, I wasn't married and I didn't have kids. So that's why I was like, all right, let me get my pops on here. Let me have him be a part of this. And, you know, we're going to talk about fatherhood from his standpoint and from my standpoint as well. Fast forward, 4 years later, I'm now married and I got 5 boys. So it completely changed my mindset of what fatherhood is because now I am a father and I'm experiencing it to the full tilt.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, let's talk about Black fathers and celebrate them. You know, so that's what we're going to do today. We're not here to bash. We're not here to degrade. We're here to celebrate Black fatherhood.
I can rock with that.
Yeah.
I can rock with that. And just for the record, I'm not there yet. Okay. I understand my colleagues are losing money as we speak, and that's all right. I love these dudes, you know what I'm saying? But I'm going to work with them. But it's definitely a good thing to kind of see that, you know, you guys have kind of matured into this position and to have the questions, you know, from my perspective, you know, what it's like, you know, what is this thing? So I can you know, if you want me to start it off, I'll go ahead and throw something
go
at
ahead.
you. Right?
Throw something
that
at me
back,
because,
right?
you know, I can talk all day. Like
so let me ask y'all this, okay? And this is a question for both of you guys, right? What is the biggest celebration to you all, right, when you first become a father? Yeah, Will, you exactly. That was for you.
To me, first and foremost, as a man, I think that fatherhood is probably the most rewarding and the most fulfilling thing that a man can do, right? Just to know that you created something that you're responsible for. You know, you're responsible for molding them, teaching them, and these people look just like you. They live in your house. It's just something that's so awesome about that, right? But it's a huge responsibility. So upon having these children, like I always say, kids don't ask to be here,
Right.
right? So as a father, I'm obligated. It's not an option to be in their life. I'm obligated. So no matter what I go through with their moms and stuff like that, for me, they are important. They are the most important, right? So you have to lead that way.
Yeah.
And that's first and foremost what I think about every time I had one. When each one of them was born, that's what I thought about, the responsibility, right? And I had my son first. So I had my son at 19. So I've been a parent my whole adult life. You know what I mean? So we kind of grew up together. He's 24 now. But it wasn't until I had my daughters to where life kind of shifted for me.
Right.
The way that I saw fatherhood shifted a little bit because now I'm the example for them, right? So the way that I interact with their mothers matters, right? The way that I treat them matters because now I'm looking at fatherhood from the scope of who will they ultimately want to have as a partner in their life.
Right.
And I want them to be comfortable and confident in having someone like their dad.
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind that I'm the example, that's what I think about every day.
Yeah. It's crazy you said that because I'm sitting here thinking of, when I met my wife, she already had 3 boys.
Mhm.
So, we don't say stepkids in our household.
Right.
I just call them my boys, but I'm sitting there thinking, it's crazy that you said that because I was thinking about what you were talking about when I first met my wife and how I was trying to mentally prepare myself from going to being single to literally a dad overnight.
Yep.
And I remember when I first met her, I was like, I don't want to meet the kids until I know you and I are 100% good to go.
Sure.
So, and you were saying, you were trying to prepare yourself to make sure that they were good to go. I'm sitting here thinking, am I going to be a cool dad for them? Because one was already 16, one was 4, 10, so it's like, I just want to make sure I'm the cool dad. But as we started progressing, I'm like, I got to be more than just a cool dad. I am their dad.
For sure.
They're looking to me to guide them, to love them, to hug them, to discipline them, to give them everything they need. So it was I wouldn't say a shift, but I can't think of the good word to use. I guess I will just use shift. But overnight, I was like, this is for real. These are young, not just men, but young black men that I'm raising up. So I have to raise them completely different. I remember when my son started driving, that was a whole different topic. Put your license here. Don't do this. Don't do that. Then my little one started school. So it's interesting listening to how you started out and to how I started out as well. So,
but you had a reference.
Yeah.
A point of reference with your father.
Yeah, most definitely.
So I'm curious as to how do you feel what's the difference between the way you father and the way your father fathered you?
You took the question right out of my mouth. Yep.
I try my hardest to follow how my dad fathered, and I was always with my dad, always. Literally, I joke all the time. I literally was working with my dad from the time I was 6 years old to I was 19, but not like in a you got to work with me, but teaching me the ways of how to be a man. I remember getting out of school and just hanging out. Even if I didn't know what I was doing, he put me on the lawnmower, let him ride with it. He let me push it. So just always spending quality time with me. And that's what I'm trying my hardest to do with my kids now, is making sure that they have quality time with mom and dad so that they know that they are loved, that they are appreciated. So that's the one thing that I really try to take from him.
See, being someone who didn't have a reference, my father was incarcerated most of my life, and my mother was addicted to alcohol. So in terms of parenthood, I didn't really have a good reference, but then again, I kind of did because I knew what I didn't want to be.
Yeah.
Right, for my children.
Right.
And so those are the things that I think about.
Right.
I think, and it's hard, right, because sometimes you can try to be everything for these children, right, but they still will do and be whoever they're going to be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? Because in my mind, I thought that, here's the thing, right? when you grow up, when you're trying to give your children everything, right,
Yeah.
and make sure that they don't make the mistakes that you made, you kind of rob them of perspective.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
100%.
Because now they're expecting all of this,
Mhm.
right? But one of the biggest lessons that I learned, I would say, is to not dismiss my children's experiences,
Right.
right? Because I grew up so tough, I used to always, when they come to me with certain stuff, it's easy to say, "Oh man, that ain't nothing. I had to do this,
Right.
right?" But I think when you do that, it keeps them from wanting to be honest or communicating with you about whatever they're going through.
Yeah.
So now you have what I started doing now is using my experiences to help them through whatever they're going through
Right.
without telling them, "Oh, that's not nothing,"
Yeah.
right? Because it's something to them.
Right.
And the reason why they're not going through the things we had to go through is by design,
Right.
right? Like we're making it that way.
Mhm.
So it's a fine line, right? Because between spoiling and
Mhm.
teaching them these responsibilities, but I think to me that line is communication,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So making sure that you're communicating with the kids, and that's something that I'm big on with my
100%.
children. When I had my son, my oldest, my son, I didn't know how to do that.
Right.
I didn't know how to communicate it. It was discipline. It was trying to hoping that he got something from watching me, but I really didn't know what I was doing because I was still a kid too.
Yeah.
But when I had my daughters and listening to some of the things that my son told me, it was like, okay, I know how I need to do this now. Now I have a 15-month-old.
Mm.
So now I know what I want to be for her.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's a learning lesson for you as a parent, but also for the children. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
just got to look at it that way.
Yeah. It's crazy because I'm learning every single day.
Mhm.
There's not one day that I don't go by and I'm just like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I remember when I had my first biological son, I literally didn't know what I was doing. Like, I'm like, I don't know how to change no diaper. I don't know anything. But, going back to what you were saying with communicating and spoiling and stuff like that, one thing in our household is we try to be together as much as possible. And we always have open communication.
Mm-hmm.
When we eat dinner, we all eat dinner together at the table. No cell phones, no TV, no music. We try to sit down. How was your day? Even if we're mad at me, my wife's mad at me or my kids, we always sit down together to have some type of consistency. And when I first met my wife, she spoiled the mess out of the kids. I mean, she still does now. But I'm like, we can't just always give because, like you said, it changes their perspective for things.
Absolutely.
Even if we were super rich, I need to show them how to gain $1, how to earn $1. But having that open communication, like you said, I think is key because in my household growing up, we had open communication, but there wasn't. I never felt like I could always be authentic with my parents. I always tell my kids, you guys can come and tell me anything you want as long as you're not disrespecting us.
Right.
You come up to me cursing me out, that's a whole different situation.
For sure.
But I let them have that freedom to speak because one thing my wife always tells me is your kids are watching and learning everything that you're doing, and they can actually teach you things.
Yep.
Me and my 6-year-old, we are like oil and water. That joker right there, I love him to death. But sometimes he just be testing my patience.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, Ty, you have to listen to him. He's a person also.
Yeah.
Just because he's a kid doesn't mean that his opinion doesn't matter. And I remember she first said, no, I'm the adult. I'm the parent. He's going to listen to me. But I had to take a step back and really look at would my dad or, my mom do that to me, And like I said, it's still a work in progress,
Yeah.
helping him understand to be respectful when he's talking as well. And for me to take a step back and actually listen to what he's saying. Because he's extremely intelligent, probably too smart for his age. But having that communication, I think, is key in being parents, and especially being a father.
I think that was one of my questions to you guys. How important do you think it is? How important is it to be a great listener to your kids? On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rank that?
A 10. I mean, it's important to be a good listener in life.
Okay.
Forget just being a parent, just
Yeah.
in life, right? Like, but I don't think you really learn that until you get older, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times we listen to respond instead of listening to understand. And it's a big difference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I always say, man, like, your kids deserve to be respected as well, right? And the issue I think that our parents had is they were never honest about mistakes they made because they always wanted to make themselves look like they were perfect parents, right?
Hey,
To us.
my mama was perfect, dog.
My mama was
mama's
too,
perfect.
right? Even though I'm seeing her hiding these
She ain't
bottles
make,
under.
mama, you ain't make no mistakes. I don't know what they talk about, but you ain't make no mistakes.
Listen, but it's so important for your children to see you as human, right? I made mistakes before too.
Yeah.
Like, it's not to say that when you make this mistake, it's not going to be an issue, because it is going to be an issue. I just want to make sure you learn from that mistake, though.
Yeah,
and that's where we come in at.
Yeah.
But that's where fathers in general are important at, right? So I personally have an issue when we're not viewed as equal parents.
Yeah.
That's an issue for me. And from a society standpoint, whenever you're not with the mother, fathers aren't looked at as equal parents. It's the mother here and it's the father here. You know what I mean? And to me, that's disheartening.
Yeah.
Because it gives the wrong picture to the children, right? So when the kids come to you and you have the kids, because they see the way this is all going, they may not listen to you because mom's supposed to be running everything. Right?
Keywords you said supposed to be.
Absolutely. But that's where that communication comes in at, right? So you got to be honest with your children. Obviously, you know, it's age specific. It's only a certain amount of things you can give children at a certain age, but you still want to make sure you keep those lines of communication open when you're in those situations, in my opinion.
So listening, communication, right? What other tools do you think are like effective tools that fathers usually see, you know, from the rip, the developmental years that works in the household, you know, when you're parenting?
Being patient. That's probably the number one key thing.
You not patient, Ty? You believe in the belt?
I was going to jump in and say what you said. You said be a good listener. Man, it's so true what you said, because my wife was always like, you don't listen. And she's like, you listen to respond, and that's it. And I'm not going to lie. That's a lot of times, yeah.
Hey,
but it's true what you said.
This man know he a jerk.
No, I don't.
You're like,
no,
that's true.
I don't mean that. I don't mean it in a negative way. I'm going to mitigate, because I know she's going to listen and hear this. She's going to be like, hey, you better not lie on there. These talking all this mess to these people. You better tell them the truth.
Since you right, he a jerk.
But, you know, like Will said, you know, listening and communicate, but most definitely patience, because one thing my homeboy told me this at our baby shower for our first son. His wife was there, and she just seemed so flustered, you know, because they only had like one kid. And she was like, you know, the hardest thing that I've had to come to grips with is I don't have patience anymore. And she was like you said at the beginning, she didn't ask to be here, but I have to listen to what she's asking me. I have to take the time and understand what she's trying to convey to me, because she's learning also. They're new to this world also. And that hit me so hard. And I try my hardest to keep that inside of me, because, you know, when my 3-month-old is crying and I'm like, come on, it's okay, be quiet. He's still learning as well. He just got here. He's fresh to the game, you know, so he doesn't know, you know, if you're hungry to say, Daddy, I want food. He doesn't even want to talk yet. Same thing with my 1-year-old. He's still learning. Now he's learning to point at things, and he's starting to talk more. So he's trying to convey through his speech. But you have to be patient enough to understand what they're wanting and what they need. And I know for me, sometimes I have zero patience, you know, with things from, you know, the work we work, the field we work in. So it's like you bring that home, and it's like, I just want some peace and quiet, right?
They
you
call
know,
15 times a day.
Yeah.
I want to add on to that. What do you think on that?
I mean, I agree. I mean, you know, patience is probably the number one, number two most important thing in parenting. Let me say this though, this all didn't just, like, I didn't just walk in here like this perfect person. Right?
He did. He did.
So
He
I've
did.
been
I
in
seen it
counseling
at the
for
door.
a long time, right?
Yeah.
Like therapy. I mean, I've been in therapy since my mom passed 13 years ago, right? So I don't have any living parents. So for me, I just felt like my life was just spiraling. So I needed the help. You know what I mean? But through therapy, it taught me how to effectively communicate. It taught me how to be a good listener. It taught me all of these things, right? I would say the number one thing that I learned to do is lead with love, right?
Yeah.
And that's just in life, right? Lead with love, lead with respect, but especially with your children,
Yeah.
because those are the most important people in your life. You know what I mean? So you have to find a way to lead with love, even when it's hard to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not always easy. They're gonna do things that's gonna piss you off. They're gonna do things that's gonna get on your nerve. But you got to remember, man, I love you. You know what I mean? So a lot of times I'll take a step back, or if I find myself getting there, I'll take a few minutes and then I'll address it. You know what I mean? But me and my son, it's hard for my son now because he's grown, so I don't handle him like a kid anymore.
Right.
So when he does stuff that pisses me off, we at it.
Hey,
You know what I
we'll
mean?
say, hey, I locked the room.
Yeah,
I'm going to box you today, bro.
We at it. We at it. You know what I mean?
Until you can't beat me, I'm going to beat you.
We at it. But one of the things we're going through now is because, he is the product of like a co-parenting situation, but he grew up under his mother's roof. You know what I mean? So the way she did things, and her and his stepdad. So now that I have him and he's living with me, it's different. I'm different. He knows that. Yeah. So it's growing pains. You got to go through some things. But I love having him at this stage of his life because this is his introduction to adulthood. Now I have the reins on teaching him how to be a man, what it is to be a man. What it is to be empathetic, right? Understanding how the moves you got to make, how you got to make them, being a man of your word, being a man of principle, right? Like those kind of things I love being able to teach my son every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a lot of ups and downs. Patience is absolutely necessary. But, I mean, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. And taking the time, like Will said, like I most definitely am not the perfect father by any means. Like I said, I'm learning every single day. And it's working with your partner as well.
Yeah.
Even if you're if you're not married to your husband or to your baby daddy or your mom or baby mom or whatever, it's working with them, because at the end of the day, you still have a child together.
Right.
So it's making sure that you're doing what's best for that child. Because a lot of times I may discipline our kids, and my wife is like, "Oh, you should have tried it this way." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." But then I go back and I'm like, "All right." I'm looking how she does it, and I'm like, "Oh, dang, maybe I should have listened." Because it hit something when you said lead with love. I'm always thinking back to whenever like one of my kids gets in trouble, my wife is like, "Okay, well, tell me this. Why did you do that?" And I'm like, "No, why the hell did you do that?"
I won't beat you first. I'm trying to figure out what to do first. I think I should get my anger out first, and then we'll talk about it, come back to you.
Yeah.
Because I'm bigger than you. You know that, right? So
No,
my next question for y'all is, when you're listening, like, do you listen to the girls? I know both of you guys, you know what I'm saying? Do you listen to your girls differently? Do you listen to your boys? And for you, do you tend to listen to your sons differently? Like, do they hear differently?
My wife says I do. She always says I give my 19-year-old more grace.
Because you're trying to kick them out first. That's the only reason why you do it. I get that part. Be like, hey, bro, you're on your way out. I ain't got to argue with you too much.
I wouldn't say that I listen to them differently, but because there's such an age gap between all of them, I may move differently with them. My 19-year-old, obviously, I talk to him more of like a man because he's an adult now. Okay. He's moving into the world, not solo, but he's moving into the world to figure out what he wants to do with his life. Whereas my 6-year-old, he's in first grade, so I have to be a little more patient with him. And my 3-month and 1-year-old, I gotta be very patient. I gotta throttle it all the way back.
So you're going through y'all going through a full array of emotions.
Yeah.
Is it the same for you too?
I would say it's the same, man. I don't know that I'd listen to them differently. I think that I think it's different. I think you got to parent each kid differently because they're different people.
Yeah.
So you can have your base, like your foundation in terms of like standard rules per se. Let's say rules of the house, right? But the way that you manage each child is different.
Yeah.
Because they receive the information differently. So, but you got to know enough about your child to know how they receive what buttons to push to get them to understand where you
Certain
coming
things.
from. You know what I mean? Because I can go in there like Alyssa. Alyssa's more passive aggressive, quiet. You know what I mean? Like Callie is more like out there. So I know with Callie, I can tell her, hey man, look, you got to do this, this is this. Alyssa, you got to be a little more gentle, kid gloves. Like, hey, you know what I mean?
We not doing,
Absolutely. But the point is still the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you gotta figure out what makes your child go.
Yeah.
What motivates them.
I got a question for both of y'all. How did y'all fess up when y'all found out which child was more like y'all? That one had me laughing because I know they're gonna have to do it themselves.
I'm gonna answer we're gonna answer this question, and then we're gonna pause right there, and we're gonna pick it up on the next episode. But before I do, I like to think I was great growing up.
I think you beat yourself. That's how you introduce yourself. You're like, hey, all them brown belts in my closet.
No, it's funny you say that because, like, man, when I tell you my 1-year-old is a terror, Lord have mercy. That joker think he the man in the house. He think he the man of the house, and he wants to do things his way or no way, and that's it. And when it comes, man, you had to ask this question. Dang.
All right, I had to ask the question. You had, hey, listen, y'all. He here explaining himself to me.
I gotta cross my leg.
I'm like, he think he the man of the house. You are the man of the house, Mr. Sir. So you tell me about this young man yourself at the same
tell
time.
my wife not to watch this episode.
Right?
I may sometimes tend to like to do things my way. So this is so he is like a spitting image of me, and I'm like, God, just listen to me. Like, and he's so, like, my kids are so smart, and I know parents are always like, oh, no, this joker's super smart. I'll be like, why'd you do that? And he's like, huh? And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Yes. Like, all right, there's nothing you can do.
Nah, for me, I think all of my kids have something of me, right? It's just it just happens, man. I mean, I would say that my son is probably the one that gives me the most grief. You know what I mean? Because he's smart, he's witty, and he's funny. So it's just the way that he does things. Like I'm telling you, it's a reality show in my house every day. Hey. If I could just put a camera up in my house, man, we could really like
do something right.
Absolutely, because it's comedy every day.
Yeah.
Like if you see my son like impersonate me or oh man, it's just the funniest thing.
He looked just like you. I feel like that joke would be like, hey man, what's your favorite car? You be like, my truck. He be like, bet, I'll take that one.
Man, it just, I mean, but you see little things of yourself in all of your children at some point because you're around them so much and you have such an influence on them that, I mean, eventually they will do some things or say some things just like you do. And you be like, dang, what am I going to do with this?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was going to flip that question then to your wives.
Hold that thought. Let's pick it up. We're going to do part 2 real quick.
This is going to get real good, y'all.
It's
going to get
good.
real good.
You guys, thank you for listening to this episode. Please tune in to the very next one. We are picking up exactly where we left off. So if you want to hear how this ends, you got to listen to the next one. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Will, for being here. We're going to pick this up on episode 9. So stay tuned, and thank you again.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. Please be sure to like, share, and comment on all of our social media platforms.